Hi guys, for the last in this series of videos on Hyperlow frames, we're looking at the Hyperlow Vert Racer, and as you can see it's a 5-inch low profile vertical arm frame. And if you watch the Hyperlow Vert Freestyle video, which was the predecessor to this video, and basically the Hyperlow Vert Freestyle was evolved from this particular frame, you'll know that the idea of the vertical arms is to cut down on wind resistance when you're shooting through the air, and the idea behind the low profile, in this case 10mm, is to basically give you a more even centre of gravity. So without having a battery floating up here and having your battery in your prop line, it basically makes the quad better balanced. So that aside, if you want to sort of see me talking about that, look at the Hyperlow CG and Vert Freestyle build videos where I'll go into more of that. But as per the Vert Freestyle, you get 5 arms, so you get a replacement, and you also get these little spacers which you can use to increase the stack from 10mm to 15mm. Obviously you get a LiPo pad and basically an SMA pad as well, which goes under here. And this frame, as it's built right now, weighs 86 grams. So it's not the lightest race frame in the world. Now, of the 3 Hyperlow frames, this was the one that I was least excited about, simply because I'm more of a freestyle pilot, and when I do look at and fly race frames, I tend to prefer sort of ultralight setups. So I've got the Avant frames, which tend to weigh sort of 55-60 grams, and earlier on this year I was playing around with a 160 gram fully built quad pre-props with 204s on, and that tends to be the kind of way I go with race quads. I'm not a racer, but I do love the way that they feel in the air and the way that they're so agile. So this weighing as it does, generally speaking, wouldn't be my cup of tea. There are tons of racers out there who race with frames like this, and a frame of this weight sort of comes more into using sort of bigger motors like your T-Motor F40s and Brother Hobby 2207s, that type of motor. Whereas if you put those on an ultralight frame, all you end up doing is running such a ridiculously high camera angle, you end up sort of having to fly the quad with its nose pointing at the floor, and I find that kind of frustrating because it means you're always going at Mach 2. And you lose a little bit of control, whereas on a lighter quad you can use lighter motors, run a lower camera angle, and I like the feeling of kind of screwing the nuts off it as opposed to holding back all the time and protecting my battery, and etc, etc, etc. However, and it is a relatively big however, I think this is a really good frame, like all the Hyperlow ones. Again, everything's really well made. The carbon is exceptional, the arms feel really strong, it's going to really cut through the air, and I suspect round a track it's going to be absolutely blindingly quick. But the part that I'm more excited about is as the Hyperlow Freestyle evolved from this, a few things sort of changed. When this frame was originally released, it didn't have the press nuts on the bottom, and you can still buy as replacements, as spares from the Hyperlow page, you can still buy the bottom plate without the press nuts in. And when Rich sent me this, he kindly sent me this plate, and he also sent me the battery mount from the Hyperlow Vert Freestyle. And the reason why I did that is there's a guy on Facebook called Brian who's doing some really interesting things with this particular quad, and this for me is where this frame gets really exciting beyond the race frame, because it also fits the Hyperlow Vert Freestyle arms, which are around 11mm longer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what happens when we put these components together, and you'll see why, for me as a freestyle pilot, it becomes a little bit more exciting. Right, so after a few modifications, this is what it looks like. bar the fact that I put this arm upside down, but hey, this was just quickly stuck together for the purposes of this video. So what I've basically done is swapped the old top plate with the lipo strap cutouts for the much slimmer top plate from the older Vert Freestyle, which is basically exactly the same as this one, bar it doesn't have the press nuts in it. And what that's done is immediately given us a much slimmer central profile, which again will cut down on wind resistance. I've then added in the battery plate from the Vert Freestyle, and which allows me to mount a battery toilet tank style, which is becoming pretty common these days. So you would kind of mount your battery like so. You can then see it frees up a large amount of space at the front, and I've added on the GoPro couch from my Hyperlow CG. If I then had the arms, or should I say spare arms, from the Vert Freestyle frame, which as I said are longer, what I can then do is basically, if you see at the moment, the props will hit the mount. If I use the longer arms from the Vert Freestyle, essentially I can then run 5" or 5.5" props, and I'll have a sub 100 gram frame that should absolutely scream through the air while carrying a GoPro and having a toilet tank style battery, which is really well balanced. So this, when I eventually build it, is the way I'm going to build mine. As I sort of like to fly with a GoPro on top, it makes sense for me to take advantage of this. And the beauty of it is, if I don't want to run a GoPro, I just take it off and I can carry on racing with this strap like this, or simply run it the way you would generally run it. So I really like the idea of this. Now obviously it's not a true freestyle frame in this orientation. It's still got stretched X arms, which again I don't really see as a problem, because it just means that you can get the nose down and fly fast, which is what this design is for. But you're essentially getting almost a mini Vert Freestyle. You know, you're still going to get props in view, there's no way around that without raising this couch. But the fact I can now add a GoPro onto a little frame like this is really appealing to me, and using those longer arms, which I'll have spare from the Hyperlow CG, is a really nifty idea. And I really like this battery plate, because of course if you break the plate, it's a couple of quid to get a new one, as opposed to replacing and messing around with changing all the top plate. So yeah, so I think the frame itself is really good in its normal configuration. It's a really good race frame, a little bit heavy for my own personal preference, but tons of people are winning races on 80 gram frames. There's no sort of downside of doing that. You just need a little bit more power than what I usually use in 2204s, etc., to achieve it. But for me, I really like the idea, as I said, of just switching it around, making it more of a sort of racer stroke hybrid frame, and then, you know, if I started racing, I could do my usual freestyle with this sort of build, and then simply remove the GoPro and change the battery around, and I'm off, I'm ready for the races. So I kind of like that dual purpose in a frame, and it's not massively expensive to do that, especially if you're running you know, the Vert Freestyle frame like I am. So yeah, once again, thanks very much Rich for sending this. It's definitely going to be a frame I'm going to build. I'll probably run mine eventually on possibly 2205s or 2206s. As I said, I don't really like going to big heavy motors on race quads, and I think I might actually just use the RCX 2206, which are probably a little bit of a low KV, but I really like those motors and I've got them sitting around, so for the sort of flying that I do, they'll probably work really nicely on a frame like this. And my idea would basically to build this with an all-in-one, so I can keep the 10mm stack, keep the weight down, and providing I can get an all-in-one board with ESCs and a flight controller built in that actually works, yeah, should be for a fun little build. I need to wait for Unmanned Tech in the UK to get some spares in, which they tell me they're going to get in the next shipment from Hyperlow. So yeah, so when I get another 3 arms, I'm gonna build this guy and we'll see what it does. So yeah, cheers guys, thanks very much, bye bye.